What's up, nerd family? Welcome once again to the Poindexter Lounge. My name is Enosh, aka Enosh Fett, along with the lovely.
Tiftastic.
And over there on the end we got.
Landon Calrissian.
And of course up top.
Isaac Wan Kenobi.
And Logan the Hutt is currently...
Taking Wookie the dog to go potty.
Yes.
On the lawn.
So, but today we are finally talking... spoilers for Avengers Endgame. Right?
Yes.
So keep your comments coming, all right? And we're going to read your comments and talk about it as we go. So, we've all seen Avengers Endgame here. I've seen it twice. I know
And I've seen it twice also.
Isaac's seen it
I've
twice.
seen it twice also.
Landon's seen it twice. Tiffany, you're the only one who hasn't seen it twice.
Me and
And
Logan
Logan.
are the only ones that haven't seen it twice.
Well, you'll have to go see it twice then. Twice time. And so we've had a chance to digest it. So if you have not seen, if you're like one of the two people on the planet who has not seen Avengers at all, just know that there will be spoilers, because that is what we are talking.
Muay Thai Jedi said I have seen it thrice now.
Ooh, thrice. I like that word, thrice. That's a nice fun.
Arctic Conquest says I want to see it again.
Yeah.
Such
Yeah.
a great movie.
So let's just jump right in. So we're gonna talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything else that has to do with Avengers Endgame. So I guess we'll just go around the room, and you guys can put in your remarks and your thoughts about this, of what you like about it, what you didn't like about it, and we'll just kind of go from there. So overall impression of the movie, Tiff.
I actually liked it. There was parts of it that I didn't like, parts of it that I did like.
There's Logan.
There's Logan the Hutt. He's taking out Wookie the dog. Mr. Tipper says right now in Ohio it's raining. We've had rain on and off all day for the last for the last 2 days.
Played softball today in the
3 days.
rain.
So
Thus the hat, because
Fun.
I've got hat hair.
I liked some of the other Avengers movies more than this one, but I still like this one. I still like what it did for the story.
Mm-hmm.
I actually had a hard time enjoying the movie because someone next to me was responding negatively, and it was taking me out of trying to listen and pay attention to the movie.
That
so,
person sounds like a jerk.
Yes.
don't
So
know
I
who
was
that-
not able. That's why I need to actually see it again by myself or something like that, so I can actually see it, for what it is and not just closed off.
What would you say your favorite part is, Tiff?
Jimbo says I liked it, but it's not one of my favorites. That's how I feel.
Yeah. So I'll go. So here's, and this is the nutshell, and then we'll get into kind of the actual storylines of it. I think more and more people are starting to feel like I feel about the movie. Where when I first saw the movie, a lot of people that I've talked to about the movie here in the last couple of weeks since it came out, they've all kind of said the same thing. They said when they first saw it, they were so overwhelmed by it and so taken in by it, and like they just wanted to love it so much because it was the end of an era. It was this big build up of all these things, and the end of Phase 3, and technically there's one more movie in Phase 3, Spider-Man Homecoming. Or
Chicken
Far From
Nugget says
Home.
the best part was the final battle, and Tipper says Captain America got his life that he wanted.
Yeah, so we'll get into that in a minute. But people were so overwhelmed and like drawn into it, and they wanted to like it, and they were kind of presented with these things of like things that they expected or things that they would have wanted, like Captain America to have a life or whatever. That like a lot of the details about how it happened and like what actually happened went over a lot of people's heads. And then once they had the time to digest it and maybe see it a second or third time and actually think about it, there's a lot of people that I know now who are coming back going, here's a problem here, and here's a problem here, and here's what I didn't like about it here or here. And so a lot of those things I noticed on first watching it, where stuff would happen and I would go, this doesn't make any sense. This is, the whole time travel aspect really bothered me actually, because not that they were time traveling, but that they kind of set these silly rules for time travel that it doesn't affect anything. Right up front, that put me out, because that told me they can do anything they want to do and it won't matter. Like, it's not going to change. It's not like usually when you get a time story or time travel story where you go back, you get the butterfly effect or something like that, where it's like you got to be careful what you do in the past because it can change your future. Instead, it was, we can pluck anybody out at any time, do anything we really want to do, and it's not going to affect, because that's our future instead of our past, you know. And I had a problem with that, and I still have a problem with that, even upon second viewing. Now, the first time, as Tiffany mentioned, I was angry at the movie. I was literally angry at the movie because I felt like it didn't follow its own rules. It just flippantly.
Jimbo said it's Dragon Ball Z time travel.
Yeah, and I don't subscribe to that, and that's just not my thing. And I've never been a Dragon Ball Z fan either, so I understand.
I was, and I agree with you, because I watched the entire season when there was like VHSs that tells you how old how long it's been, where you put all of the videos together and it made, you know, a picture. So that's how far.
So
it's
I
been
get
since
it.
I've seen it.
Yeah. So I get it, and it's not that I understand, and that's my problem that I've had, is I have a lot of friends who really really love the movie, who like keep trying to talk to me like I don't understand it. I understand it. I get what they were doing. I just don't agree with it personally. It's just not my thing. As far as how time travel should be handled. That being said, the first time I was angry at it and didn't like it and had some issues with it, I didn't like the way they treated Thor. Afterwards, I didn't like the way they treated Captain America, because even though he gets his life that you'd want to see him live, it actually kind of undoes his sacrifice to begin with. The reason why he gave up Peggy to begin with. When you realize that he goes back in time, and you know, he promised Bucky that he would protect him. The only reason he couldn't was because he wasn't there. He was frozen, and he couldn't keep Bucky from being tortured and mind controlled and all those things. And now to have that knowledge and just not do anything about it for all that time, where he was, and with Hydra controlling S.H.I.E.L.D. and everything, and to not do anything about any of that. It kind of makes Captain America look very selfish to me, that he goes back and does that. I think one of the beauties of Captain America's story is it's heartbreaking, because he's not able to have the relationship that he wanted with Peggy Carter. So stuff like that. But upon second viewing, I enjoyed the movie a lot more. I put aside some of those things. I did understand it a little bit better the second time, and understood the time travel aspect and what they were trying. Because the first time I was just like angry at it, and I had a hard time focusing on it because I just felt like it was a cop out. Second time,
You were
like,
angry when Captain Marvel showed up.
He was angry for everything. He was just like, seriously, and I couldn't pay attention.
I just felt like there was a lot of fan service, which normally I'm okay with, but it was like fan service that like just. It went too far, I felt. And I felt like Thor was misrepresented. Thor was, you know, kind of kicked to the curb as well, and not treated with respect. And that's things like, I really felt that these characters, if this is some of their going out, that they needed to be treated with respect, you know, that they really needed to be taken care of.
Thor's going to be in Guardians 3.
Yeah, and so now Thor, you know, is joining the Asgardians of the galaxy. And that's cool. I just didn't think that, I mean, he just didn't come across as Thor in this whole movie to me.
At the end.
And there was 4 people here already that says I loved Thor.
Yeah, so, you know, and that's the thing. It's like, I'm not telling you how to feel. If you love the movie, that's great. That was just my opinions, like, going into it. Like I said, the second time I watched it, I liked it a whole lot more. And I dig it. But I still say that I've noticed the trend that since Age of Ultron, from Age of Ultron on, it seems like a lot of these movies have just coasted. There has not been a lot of forward progression. There's been about 1 movie's worth of forward progression in the entire story. Everything else has been pretty much a commercial for the next movie to kind of say, hey, guess what? We're building to something, so come back and watch the next movie. That's where I have issue. The first Avengers, great. First Iron Man, awesome. Made me care about Iron Man, and I didn't care about Iron Man before. Guardians of the Galaxy, tremendous. You know what my favorite part of this movie was? Like the one part, because everybody talks about like the emotion and stuff in this movie. The one part that really got me emotionally was Ant-Man. When he comes back and he sees his daughter and she's in the house and they have this stare down moment where she's behind the door and she looks up and she sees that it's her dad and she kind of freaks out for a second because he's been gone for 5 years. I thought that was a really touching moment, and that's what got me. And before I turn it over, the other thing that I feel is messed up about the whole thing is the fallout. It'll be interesting to see how they actually deal with the fallout, because if you really think about what the fallout would be from them just bringing people back and not fixing the problem, not putting things back the way that they should be, the problem then comes about. What about food distribution? I mean, those are things I know it's a comic book movie, but it's like if you eliminated half the population and half of the world's animals and creatures and everything, because that's what Thanos did. He snapped and half of all creatures, half the universe was dead. Just on planet Earth, if you eliminated half of all that, and then 5 years later, without any kind of change or anything, you got to realize that there would be absolute chaos when it all happened, and it would put the world into a spiral. Having 5 years to try to put stuff back together, if you snapped and just brought back, 3.5 billion people, think about food distribution. You would have famine, you would have crisis, you wouldn't have enough food to feed people, you wouldn't have enough room for people because people would have moved on. What about the families that moved on? What about like if Tiffany and I were in the snap and I went and Tiffany was still alive and Tiffany got remarried in the next 5 years? Maybe somebody helped her. Maybe we had a neighbor or something like that helped her through that time of losing me in the snap, and they got closer and they got married, and then all of a sudden, poof, I show back up. Hey babe, I know for you it's been 5 years, but for me it's been just like that. So literally I just left and came back. I'm ready to come back home. That creates a problem. You see what I'm saying? That would be a major issue for families. Think about that, families and relationships, and like I said, just all that, nations. What happens if like the president got taken and then all of a sudden the president's back, and not just of the United States but all around the world? Like those are some serious issues, and all just because Tony didn't want to mess up the possibility of him having his daughter. So it also is kind of a selfish thing for that, really, when you think about it, because it's all for one person. So like he got to determine what the snap was when they got to reuse the snap to bring everything back. They could have fixed everything, but Tony says, no, don't do it. Just bring them back. Don't fix everything, because he was scared that he was going to lose his daughter. And I get that. But there's some huge ramifications in that. Some very huge issues and problems. And one of the things that I'm concerned about after seeing the trailer for Spider-Man Far From Home, which Spider-Man Far From Home is supposed to deal with some of the fallout from this.
Because Flash 65 says, and all the Spider-Man characters are the same age, ?
Yeah, apparently they all went in the snap and they just come back. Well, and that's the thing. It's like,
They're all the same age.
so if you were in school,
said.
if you were in school, it literally shows now, like it's talking about that Peter Parker just goes back to school, like right now, like he just goes right back to school. Like there would be so many issues with that, and so much like infrastructure problems and everything. People would, I mean, and now another thing, and I read something about this, and I think it's being addressed maybe in Spider-Man, is the fact that like your driver's license, like say your identification.
Well, you said I'm not concerned about the rest of the world, just the characters in the movie right now.
I know, but these are things that I think about. So imagine this. You were.
Are they going to have a chance to say how they
Yep,
feel about
yep,
it?
they are.
'Cause you've,
Yep,
like...
yep. But imagine this. Imagine you were 18 years old, or 17 years old when the snap happened, right? 5 years have passed for everybody else. You come back. You're still 17 years
They're
old.
22.
Right? Everybody that you knew who was your age is 22. Imagine now the problem with things like driver's license and social security cards and things like that. And imagine all the 17-year-olds now who are going to go try to buy alcohol. with an ID that says that they're 22, but really they're only 17. Like there's just all these things, and my fear and my concern is that from the trailer of Spider-Man that I've seen, like Spider-Man's like, I'm gonna go on vacation. Everything's cool. Everything's back to normal. That's the problem that I have. It's kind of like watching The Flash, where it's like we get this big finale every year, right? And it's like a major thing, and then in the first episode, within the first 15 minutes, everything's back to normal. So those are my concerns. Those were my big problems with it, because I'm concerned with Phase 4 going forward. Plus all the major characters that I love besides Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm glad Thor is still around. Spider-Man is amazing, and I'm glad that he's still around. But a lot of these other characters, I mean, are you guys excited about an Eternals movie? Because that's where they're going with it. They want to do Eternals, and we're going to have to wait for quite a while before we get any kind of reboot of the X-Men or Fantastic Four, which is who I would want to see in the MCU. But, you know, besides a couple of characters, who do we really have left that we can root for? A lot of our favorites are now gone, and the ones that they left behind aren't all strong characters. They were kind of like secondary characters to the main ones. So
But
they've
they
got a
can
big
become-
task. I know, but they've got a big task ahead of them.
The only thing.
Go,
that,
Layden.
the only,
That's my
Jimbo
statement.
said waiting for Doctor Doom.
Ooh, Doctor Doom.
The only thing that
Like
one of the only things that I had a problem with Endgame was I feel like, because like we get Captain Marvel did good, and like it was just like to explain what her character was in Endgame.
Yeah.
But I felt like she was a little overused in Endgame. Like
Overused.
not overused. but,
Underused.
Like underused, but like she did like everything. Because in the end fight, she just flies in and destroys everything. She destroys
the ship, yeah.
And then she's like destroying like all these big huge things that are there.
I did what you bring up a
I
great
think
point.
she was crankier in this movie.
She was.
I
She was
want to
really
use another
angry.
word, but we're a nice channel.
Yeah. You know, and I watched a video actually that talked about just that, Landon.
Mm-hmm.
That like it didn't like where they have her run with the gauntlet and like all the women come together to protect her. Like that doesn't make any sense.
She's like destroying everything.
She just flew through a ship, and all the women are like, "Don't worry, we got it." And in that, they said that what would have been better, and I loved this. This would have been tremendous. Was they should have had Nebula and Gamora
I agree, Russ.
be the ones to run the gauntlet to try to get it to the
That's what I felt.
to try to get it there, because what could have happened is Captain Marvel could have distracted Thanos while that was going on. All the women superheroes could have come together and protected Gamora and Nebula, and then just as they get there, Thanos gets free from Captain Marvel, and then Tony could have made eye contact with Nebula, who has the gauntlet, and then they could have done a callback where Nebula has to throw, and Tony goes like this, and she throws it to him, and that would have made more sense. Just giving it to Captain Marvel, like,
and then like
she didn't need protection.
Russ said
And
I
then
noticed she was supremely arrogant as well.
and,
Yeah.
and then apparently Thanos like hits her across like super far, and then he goes to snap, and then she's right back there taking it off his hand.
Chicken Nugget says, but Thanos did blast her through a mountain.
Yeah, so we did get that, and I actually cheered when that happened. I know a couple people looked at me weird, but when that happened, I was like, thank God somebody's doing something, because yeah, that was rough.
First time through, whenever she got close to anything, you were just like, it was like she
Just-
wasn't gonna win the thing. I knew that.
I'm glad that they didn't have her win and like be the one to beat
Well, yeah,
Thanos.
there's two versions of Endgame. There's one with Captain Marvel and one without Captain Marvel. Because they were seeing how our movie did first. If a movie flopped, they were going to show the version without Captain Marvel. And if Captain Marvel did good, then they were going to show the version of Endgame with her.
Really?
Yeah. That's why they didn't show her in the trailers until the movie came out.